And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle, and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image, in the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to every thing that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. The sixth day of creation bears a direct relationship to the pineal gland's activity with the previously created forces of the body, as well as those from the conscious and soul mind. The focus of the creation here seems to be more in how the mind operates with those things already created, yet there is a final element needed, and this day brings it to consciousness. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle, and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. The 24th verse seems to reflect the creation in consciousness of the awareness of the results of activity caused by previous glandular creative actions. This is the awareness of a perhaps unexpected, conscious, result from the creation of memory functions, for the earth brought forth not only the living creature, which can only be recognized and activated through memories, but also the cattle along with the creeping thing, and with the beasts of the earth. Conscious awareness of the potentials, the results of, and the evolutionary natures inherent in the body forces are shown in the previous day's activities. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw that it was good. In verse 24 God had said, whereas in verse 25 God made. This reflects that an idea is first in mind before it can be created and expressed. The only thing not manifested in verse 25 which was in 24 is the living creature, yet it is the first creation recorded in that verse. This living creature relates to the mental concepts we create and give life to, which are our temperaments, what we be. And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image, in the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. While being a function of the created man found in verse 27, it was in mind as a function of the earth forces, which we have previously considered, hence they needed to be recognized, in mind, before man's creation, as in verses 26 and 27. Again, they are mentioned here because they are a necessary recognition of the animal, instinctual and subliminal natures. After becoming aware, in mind, of the needs of the created man, in verse 27, then the earth brought forth the beast of the earth after his kind, so that man, when created, could know his own fleshly natures by reason of what he sees outside himself. The animal instincts and natures are separated into distinct forms so as to express their pure natures, after his kind. The various animals are symbols of the manifested fleshly natures in man, thus he, man, could come to know his own natures. Cattle represents the emotions in like manner as do the beasts after their kind, and also everything that creepeth upon the earth. Thus there has been created everything necessary, as evolving natures, for man to use in order to know himself. God saw that it was good. Then, while all created things were good, there was needed that final element, a seat of authority, or a director, a controlling function to handle all these separate factors. With all being ready, God thought in mind and said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." This sentence requires us to review previous creations after their kind. Thus it is that man was created in the image of his Creator, just as were the previously created forms, after their kind, all in that form first thought up by mind itself. Man through mind actions has, in the pineal activity, dominion over the fish of the sea, the activities of the unconscious mind, over the fowl the instincts, over the cattle, the emotions, and over all the earth, meaning the earthly creative forces, namely, the elements called earth, water, fire and air, as well as all creeping things. These creeping things, brought forth by the earth and being a mind development, the sixth, or pineal gland, activity, can easily be associated with conscience, which brings forth fears, guilts and those feelings that gnaw at our conscience. All are slow or creeping evolutionary patterns in the earth's activities, yet all are ultimately helpful to us. The creation of man, verse 27, shows that man is an image of God. Yet here is another factor in creation not previously found. The creation of man was not exactly like God, for created he man, male and female. Very simply, this differing creation is not merely for convenience of reproduction of the species, as it seemingly is with animals, but more importantly to show man his dual nature, as an earthly yet heavenly entity of two minds which, through obedience to that originally created entity, could find himself one with the creative forces, just as in that light that brought it all into being in the first place. We are not forgetting the potential in man's dual nature, nor can we overlook his use of will. This, however, is not our focus here. We must look further into the blessings passed unto man, for they are a part of the sixth day's activity. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Having been created, man was blessed, and told to be fruitful, and multiply. I take blessed to indicate the connection of man with that which is not earthy or of the flesh. This can be taken to be the connection between the conscious and the subconscious, which is the soul being and its mind, thus linking the man to his Creator, that mind in the creative forces themselves, which is so difficult for us to contact because of our willful acts. Be fruitful, and multiply, relates to the soul growth, which seemingly can only grow after the earth forces are laid aside, consciously, and they can develop the soul according to their purposes. Replenish the earth can only happen when we cut all ties to the flesh. This means that when we, by reason of the blessing, pay our debt to the flesh for having disturbed its natural evolution, we replenish the earth forces we took on. Then and only then can the full rewards of the blessing be realized. Through proper use of the creative forces, man can take dominion over all ideas, fishes, in the unconscious sea, over the instincts, fowl, and the emotions, cattle. Improper use of these same forces creates the image man has of himself, his ego, and he indulges these natures for his own fleshly gratification. All of these factors are active in man's uses of the creative forces through the mind, which is a function of the pineal gland. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to every thing that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. Whatever pathway we select causes the growths we call the tree of life in us. And this is the meat for our beastly natures, or for the soul. This points up the dual nature of man signified in the specific creation of man as male and female. Hence man was not made in the exact image of God, yet it does point to the dual nature of the mind as set out above, for indulgence of the animal, flesh, instincts, or for the growth of the soul. For answers to this dilemma, we must await the seventh day's activity when God rested. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." God created man in his own image. The earth sphere, with the first creation in the mind of the Creator, has kept its same creative energy, for God is the same yesterday, today and forever, and same in one creation creates that same in the other creation. For indeed we live, we move, we have our being in the very forces that manifest in the material world as individual conditions in matter, and from which each of these may have been drawn, all of the forces in materiality. Know that man, as has been expressed, was given dominion over all, and in the understanding of same may use all of the laws as pertaining to same for his benefit. That thou art conscious of being thyself, 5030, now, should be evidence to thee that the first cause, God, is mindful of thee and hath given thee an opportunity to be a manifestation of his love, his grace, his mercy. If ye would find mercy with God, be merciful to others. If ye would have love with God, love thy fellow man. For as he is love, the earth thereof in light, he gave the new commandment, love one another. The individual is accountable in self, and to no other but God, as to what its ideas, purposes or ideals are, and is not to be dominated or persuaded, or forced, through any condition, to give even a purpose, or word, toward other than its individual ideal and purpose concerning same. For, as has been given, God created man in his own image, and gave, I have set before thee this day good and evil. Choose thou whom thou wilt serve, whether the ideals as are set in his way and spirit, or the desires of the flesh. Make up the mind of self, for others cannot make it up for you, for, as has been written, man was made in the image of his Creator with the abilities to choose for himself. Would you make yourself as one of the animals and be led about by the will of the wind? Or wilt thou stand upright and act like one of the sons of God? For those that have applied even those in the light of self's own interest have their reward already. They that have ministered that the God force, the soul that is the image of the Maker might be glorified have done so unto the Lord. His brethren, his individual selves are but the material manifestations of that creative force in a material world. The soul was made in the image of the Creator, to be a companion with that influence which is constructive, which is creative. For while the body changes, for it, too, must be purified, the soul remains ever as one. For it is in the image of the Creator, and has its birthright in him. The image in which man was created is spiritual, as he thy Maker is spiritual. For flesh and blood entereth not into spirituality, only as it becomes purified, glorified, sanctified. For as each soul, not the body but the soul, is the image of the Maker, so with the awareness of the soul consciousness, there may come the awakening to the realization of the soul's relationship with that universal consciousness, as is promised in him. Keep then the faith in those things that pertain to creating in the mind and in the body a helpful experience. See in those ye dislike the most that ye would worship in thy Creator. For, each soul's manifestation in the earth is in the image of its Maker. Just as thou art in his image. Ye as an individual are made in the image of the Creator. Ye are, as an individual, remembered by him. God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it. For the service to man is the highest service, as may be rendered to him who gave that, the earth is thine. Subdue same, magnifying my name in the earth. For the injunction to man is to subdue the earth. Then all the powers of creation are in the hands of man, and ye are a very good one to handle much of these, but know that these abilities are lent thee by a divine power. Who made thee Lord of any soul? For the powers within must be spiritualized. Not that the body is not spiritual-minded, but there is the necessity to be spiritual-minded and then able to gain control sufficiently over the power of mind in the body as to cause the vibrations from the atomic structures to produce health-giving forces, rather than taking the continual suggestions, "I'm sick and going to stay sick." These reactions should be brought about by suggestion, as well as application. For no, as was given from the beginning, it is necessary to subdue the earth. Man is made, physically, from every element within the earth. So, unless there is a coordination of those elements of the environs in which the animal man operates, he is out of attune, and some portions suffer. He must contain and command those elements. These are subduing, using, controlling, not being controlled by but controlling, those environs, and influences about same. For as the entity finds itself in this particular realm a part of this universe and the universal consciousness, there are those consciousnesses also in Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn and Uranus, Neptune, yes, even in the spheres through which the Sun and the Moon are active. For these were given to the souls of men for their use, not men given to the world for its use. For the injunction is to multiply and to conquer and to subdue and to be aware, not as for selfish motives, but to the glory of the creative forces, God. So with that same spirit and purpose in which all nature, yea all the universe, declares the glory of God. Can ye as an entity dare to do less? For, remember, all of these planets, stars, universes, were made for the entity and its associates to rule, and not be ruled by them, save as an individual entity gives itself to their influence. For, the creative force made or brought into being souls to be equal with, and one with, him, even as is manifested in the way, the truth, the light. His purpose was for man to subdue, to conquer, to use, to apply the earth in its every use for man. Ye are part and parcel of a universal consciousness or God, and thus all that is within the universal consciousness, or the universal awareness, as the stars, the planets, the sun, the moon. Do ye rule them, or they rule thee? They were made for thy own use, as an individual, yea, that is the part, the thought thy Maker, thy Father God thinks of thee. Man was made in the image of God. Thus he was given the injunction, be fruitful, multiply, but subdue the earth. The weaknesses that exist in this particular body are a projection of those conditions which existed in the great-grandfather of the entity, in an experience in the earth, and has to do with those elements bearing upon the hormones of the blood force itself. And in the body, 2533, it exhibits itself as a tendency. To eradicate, to eliminate such from the body, is to be interpreted from that given in the beginning, be ye fruitful, multiply, but subdue the tendencies, the inclinations, the earth. For, in manifestation in the earth of spiritual and mental forces, it partakes of the earth. And the earth is earthy, as it changes, as it is in constant change. And that which bespeaks of longevity in a body bespeaks of each cell, each atomic structure, each of the corpuscles being able to reproduce itself without those tendencies, or inclinations of racial, or environmental conditions, but as one purified or cleansed for that continuity of experience within itself. Mercury. High mental ability, very intelligent, judgment. In Mercury we find the high mental ability, and with the influences that make for capacities in well analyzing the mental reactions of individuals towards people, things, and their activity. In Mercury we find the mental forces, quick of perception, and analytical in its manner, yet questioning oft. In Mercury we find judgment and consideration, and this with tolerance gives that ability for the entity to be companionable with whatever influence, or environ in which it may find itself. The entity is one well liked, then, in any environ. In Mercury, we find an influence of high mental capacity in the individual activities towards things, towards conditions, rather than peoples. In Mercury, we find the high mental abilities of the body, quick at resentment, and as quick to forgive. In Mercury, we find the great mental abilities. In Mercury, we find the quick mental adaptability, as the quick thought, the quick wit that is and will be a part of the entity's experience.